Well, thank you, Linda. Good morning still. I am Chris Fitzsimon with NC Policy Watch. I wish I could say I was happy to be here, but I'm not. I'm a little worried. After all, the legislature is in special session. The last time this out-of-control extremist General Assembly met in special session in the afternoon, they waited around until some folks went home. Then they went back into special news session, an unannounced session in the middle of the night, and took rights away from teachers and school employees. The time before that, when they came back for a special session, this extremist and out-of-control General Assembly passed a repeal of the Racial Justice Act. Think about that. They know there is racial bias in our capital punishment system, and they voted to repeal the Racial Justice Act that does something about it. The time before that, this extremist and out-of-control General Assembly came back in a special session. They passed a marriage discrimination amendment to give the majority of voters in North Carolina the ability to write discrimination into our Constitution. And not just discrimination against gay couples who want to get married. They approved an amendment so extreme it affects employee benefits, domestic violence laws, and a host of other protections. We have had all the extremist, out-of-control special sessions we can stand.
Yes.
So I would say turn the lights off, put the gavels and the far-right agenda away. We have had all the extremist, out-of-control special sessions we can stand. Go home, leave us alone, leave our fundamental rights alone, leave the Racial Justice Act alone, and leave our right to vote alone. We have had all the extremist, out-of-control special sessions we can stand. Go home and come back in May, when you're supposed to come back, and hold a session the way they are supposed to be held, with public hearings, public calendars, and public notice about what you are going to do in our name, in our house, that affects our lives. And when you get back home, think about what you have done to North Carolina, not only in your extremist, out-of-control special sessions, but in your extremist, out-of-control regular session last year. Teachers were fired, textbooks were cut, at-risk kids were turned away from preschool programs, funding for victims of crimes was cut, the Teaching Fellows program was abolished, and services to seniors and people with disabilities were slashed. This extremist and out-of-control General Assembly decided to allow people to carry loaded handguns in state parks, and the House wants to let people carry them in bars. This extremist and out-of-control General Assembly drew obscenely gerrymandered district lines that targeted Democratic women to drive them out of the General Assembly, and passed extreme anti-choice legislation that targets women and families across North Carolina. They held they held thousands of unemployed workers hostage, using benefits they need to feed their families as fodder in a political battle. They ignored the unemployed workers for months, and now they demonize them every day. This extremist General Assembly cut benefits to the poor and services to people with disabilities, and then tried to pit them against each other. Speaker Tillis, as I'm sure you have heard, says his goal is to divide and conquer people on public assistance by getting people with a disability to look down on other people who are poor.
Not right.
And Tillis said a few days ago that House Majority Leader Paul Stam wanted to do away with public schools. And they are on their way, ladies and gentlemen, allowing shady, out-of-state, for-profit companies to set up virtual charter schools in North Carolina. Dividing and conquering, destroying public schools. This is not a conservative General Assembly. This is a radical, reactionary, far-right, extreme, out-of-control General Assembly. So I leave you with one thought. Enough is enough. Enough midnight sessions. Enough ignoring racial bias. Enough with the attacks on teachers and public schools. Enough with the war on women. Enough with cuts to health care and early childhood. Enough special sessions and enough dividing and conquering. And enough with this Art Pope-funded crazy train. Enough with this out-of-control extremist agenda. Enough, ladies and gentlemen, enough. Thank you very much.